Hi everyone, my name is Akorede Adenike. In the tutorial today, I would like to teach you how to cut and sew this beautiful lovely dress showing on the screen. Now let's get into it. Here is the fabric I'm making use of. I have 2 yards of this fabric here. I'm cutting the upper part first. To know the amount of fabric, putting on fold for the upper part, I'm going to use the biggest part of my upper part to calculate my measurement, which is bust. Now guys, this is what I have for my upper part. Here is the back part of my upper part and here is the front part. I have extra 5 inches here before I place my back on it to make it form the wrap I'm talking about. This is 5 inches from the center front. Here is the center front and here is the center back. Placing it on the line which I measured from my center front here, 5 inches extra to form my wrap. So as time goes on, you will understand. Let me just place it on it like this. Here is my back folded into 2 and here is my front part folded into 2. My front is underneath the back part. So let me use my pin to hold it and continue with the measurement. Now, after pinning down my fabric, here will be my shoulder line. From there, on that shoulder line, from my center back here, I'm going to measure 3 inches for my neck width for both front and back, 3 inches. And from there, I'm going to measure down 1.5 inches for my neck, for my back neck depth. Easily connect my back first with my free hand, just like this. If you have your curve ruler, you can make use of it. So after connecting my back neckline with my free hand, I'm going to measure 8 inches from my neckline, from my shoulder for my front neck depth. I'll just measure it like this and mark it out. Let it reflect on the front part just like this. This is my neck depth for the front part. I marked it on my front part, not on the back part. So from my center back here, I'm going to input half of my shoulder measurement on my shoulder line, which is 7.5 inches plus ½ inch seam allowance, that is 8 inches. So from there, I'm going to measure 1 inch downward for my shoulder slope, just like this. And I'm connecting to my neckline slantly. So here is my shoulder slant now for both front and back, just like this. So from there, I'm going to input half of my round armhole. My round armhole is 16 inches divided by 2 is 8 inches, which is here now. So to draw out my armhole line, on that point from the center back, I'm going to measure half of my shoulder measurement, which is 7.5 inches plus ½ inch seam allowance, which is here now. And I'm going to connect it straight like this. So here is my armhole line for both front and back. To draw out my chest line, I'm going to measure what I have here and here, which is supposed to be 9 inches, and I'm going to repeat it here. 9 inches. I'm going to connect it. I'm going to mark it out and connect it straight, just like this. So now here's my chest line. As you can see now, here's my chest line. So from my shoulder line, I'm going to measure my bust point, which is 10 inches plus ½ inch shoulder joining, which is here. $10 inches. So I'm going to connect it straight, just like this. After rolling out my chest line, I'm going to measure out my underbust from my shoulder. My underbust is 13.5 inches, like I said, plus half inch extra. That will be 14 inches, which is here. And I'm going to add half inch to it for my shoulder joining. That is 14.5 inches. 14.5 inches. The remaining half inch here will be for my waist joining. So I'm going to connect it. Now, so on my chest line, I'm going to input quarter of my bust there. My bust is 36 inches divided by 4, giving 9 inches. Plus 1 inch seam allowance, that is 10 inches, which is here. So I'm doing the same thing on my bust point line, 10 inches. So on my waistline, which is immediately after my underbust line, I'm going to input quarter of it there. Quarter of it is 8 inches because my waistline is 32 inches. Plus 1 inch that is 9 inches, plus 1 inch seam allowance, that is 10 inches. So I'm going to connect straight like this. And to draw out my armhole curve, for my back part, I'll just find the middle of this point and this point, which is supposed to be 4 inches. I'll just connect here with a little curve. If you have your curve ruler, you can make use of it. So here's my back armhole curve now, as you can see. As for the front part, I'm going to measure 0.75 inward, which is 3/4 of an inch, which is here. So I'm connecting straight from my shoulder slant here, just like this, slantly. After that, I'll just curve it to meet my chest line like this. If you have your curve ruler, please make use of it if you are not good at your free hand. So that's just it. I'm going to cut my back part first. I'll just mark my neckline my neck width for the front out. So I'm going to put my back aside. Here's my neck width for the front part. Let me just confirm it. So it's okay. 3 inches for my neck width. As for my armhole for the front part, I'll just repeat what I did on my back part, Here's it. I'll just draw it out. So here's my armhole curve for the front part. As for the neckline for the front part, you can just roll it straight down. But before rolling it straight down, from the down part here, I'll just measure 2 inches upward. I'm going to connect from here to here and to this place. Hope you understand. You can make it a little bit curved. You can make it straight. Depends on what you want. It's your preference. So I'll just connect it like this. So I'll just cut it out now. Going to open this place. So now this is what I have for my upper part. Here's it now. This is the back part and this is the front part, as you can see. Now, to know the amount of fabric putting on foot for the down part, I'm using the biggest part of my upper part to calculate my measurement, which is hip. My hip is 38 inches divided by 4 will give me 9.5 inches. So I'm adding 1 inch for seam allowance to it. No need for me to add any dart allowance. So I'm putting on fold 10.5 inches. Now, I said quarter of my hip is 9.5 inches. So I'm putting on fold 10.5 inches. As for the length, I'm going to deduct the upper part and length of the upper part from the full length of my dress. Full length of my dress is 36 inches. I will just deduct 14 inches, which is the length of my upper part from the full length of my dress. So if I deduct 14 inches from that 36 inches, the remaining inches will give me 22 inches. So, the down part has something like ruffle. So if I deduct that 14 inches from the full length of my dress, the remaining will give me 22 inches. I'm going to deduct another 5 inches for that ruffle that is on the down part, which is the hem part of the dress. I'm deducting 5 inches for that. From that 22 inches, the remaining will give me 17 inches. And it's going to be 10.5 inches on fold, both front and back. So let me quickly do that. I'll come and show you what's next. Now guys, this is what I have for the down part before I move on to my hem part. So I have here 10.5 inches. I have 11 inches here on fold, but I'm going to measure 10.5 inches, which is the actual measurement for the quarter of my hip on my waistline. This indicates my waistline. Here I have the back part folded into 2, and I have the front part folded into 2. I have extra 5 inches here for my wrap, like I did on the upper part. So from my center back here, I will just measure quarter of my hip out on quarter of my waist out on my waistline. My waist that I used on my upper part is 32 inches. I'm doing the same thing. Quarter of that 32 inches is 8 inches. No need for that allowance here. I'll just add 1 inch for my seam allowance. So from my waistline here, I'll just measure. Normal hip length is 8 inches, which is the standard one. Since the upper part that I cut out is not up to normal waistline, the length is not up to normal waistline, which is 17 inches, which is the standard measurement for waistline from the shoulder line. I'll just add 2 inches to my 8 inches now. It will give me 10 inches. I'm adding ½ inch for my waist joining. That is 10.5 inches, which is here. So here is my waistline now. Here is my hip line from the waistline. So from my center back here, I'll just measure out quarter of my hip. I said my hip is 38 inches divided by 4 is 9.5, which is here. I'll just add 1 inch for seam allowance to it. That is 10.5 inches, which is here. So let me read it out because of the beginners. So what I'll just do now is to connect from my waistline. So at the down part here, I'll just measure that quarter of my hip out and connect it straight. To give it lovely shape at the down part here, I'll just measure 1 inch inward. Just like this, and connect from here to the down part with curve. Just like this. Now to create that stylish curve at the front part of my dress, since I'm adding the ruffle, I'll just come to this line, find the middle of it, which is here, and measure ½ inch outward from this line, which will serve as my seam allowance. So I'm going to measure ½ inch downward as well for my seam allowance before I create that curve, just like this, from here to meet here. Hope you can see what I'm doing, and I'll curve it. If you have a curve ruler, you can make use of it. If you are not good at your free hand, I'll just curve it like this to meet the down part, just to create that curve at the front part of my So I'm going to cut it out, but let me cut the side first. Here is the back part. So this is what I have for my end parts. This is all I have for it. The length of each pieces here is 6.5 inches. You know, I said I'm going to use 5 inches for the length of my ruffle part, which is the hem part. So I added 1.5 to it. Half will be for the joining allowance, and the remaining 1 inch will be for hemming allowance. So I have here 6.5 inches each. So what I'll just do to it is to join the 3 together to form one piece. If you have more than this, you can make use of it. And here is my rope. I'm going to use rope for my dress. So you can make it as long as you want. As for the length, you can make it as wide as you want. I have 3 inches in length here. So that is it for my rope. This fabric here now is for my sleeve. Here is it. The length of my sleeve is 21 inches. I'm going to add 5 inches extra to it to make it look puffy very well at the down part of the sleeve. So I'm cutting both I'm cutting both sleeves together. So I have here 18 inches of fold, because my round armhole is 16 inches divided by 2 is 8 inches. Like I said, I added 1 inch to it, that is 9 inches. So this is 18 inches on fold now, because I'm cutting the 2 together. So I'm going to fold it again to make it into 4 folds. So, and I'm pinning it down to avoid it from shaking. After pinning, from here, I'm going to measure my calf's height, which is 4 inches. I'm connecting it straight, just like this. So from here, I'm measuring the length of my sleeve, which is 21 inches plus 5 inches extra, that is 26 inches. I'm adding 1.5. 1 will be my hemming allowance and half will be my shoulder joining. That is 27.5, which is here. To connect it, here I'm going to place half of my round armhole there, which is 8 inches. My round armhole is 16 inches. And I'm connecting from here to here slightly, just like this, for me to draw out my armhole curve. So I'm going to look forward is here and find the middle of it. What is there now is 9 inches. Middle of it will be 4.5 inches, which is here. So I'll just measure ½ inch outward like this, connect from here with a little curve just like this, and finish it up like this. If you have your curve ruler, I have a video on how to draft long sleeve. I'm going to put the link in the box below. Just go ahead and watch it. You will understand all I'm doing here very well. So as for my front armhole, I'll just curve it in like this. So what I'll just do now is to leave it like this and cut it out. Cutting the back armhole first. I'll open it up here now for me to cut out my front armhole. That's it. So I'm going to notch the center of my sleeve, just like this. So let's move on to the sewing aspect of my dress. Now I'm going to start my sewing from my upper part. Here is my back part of the upper part, and here is the front part. So I'm going to measure from my center back here. I'm going to measure half of my nipple to nipple measurement on my bust point line, just like this. My half of my nipple to nipple measurement is 3.5 inches plus half inch seam allowance, which is here. I'm doing the same thing on the waistline here, 4 inches. I'm going to connect straight, just like this. So from there, I'm going to measure down 2 inches. Whatever inches your bust point is from your shoulder line, just measure 2 inches downward. That is for your front dart. But as for the back dart, I'm going to start my stitching from my bust point here. So on my waistline here, I'm going to come in by ½ inch on both sides. ½ inch on both sides. So I'm connecting just like this. This is my front dart. And as for the back dart, I will just connect like this. So that is how I'm going to stitch it. This is my back dart. So what I have here for the front part, I'm going to copy it on my front part. So here is my bust point for the front part. I'll just connect it down to my waistline. I'm going to come in on both sides like I explained it on my back part with ½ inch. So from this point, I'm coming down by 2 inches. So I'll just connect slantly to meet my waistline here. So this is my front dart now. I'll let it reflect on the second part of the front, like this, to make my job faster. So what I have here for the back dart, I'm going to repeat it on the second part of the back part, just like this. Hold it and dot it out, just like this. So here's my back part. I'll just hold it like this and stitch slantly from my bust point here down to my waistline with ½ inch here and slantly here. So I'm doing the same thing on the second part of the back. Hold it like this and do that. So here's my front part. I will just separate the front part and hold it like this. Stitch from here, from that 2 inches that I measured downward from my bust point, slantly to meet the waistline here. I'm doing the same thing on the second part of the back of the front. So when I finish doing that, when I finish with the dart, I'm going to join the two shoulders together. When I finish with the dart, I'll just join the two shoulders with ½ inch. I'll place it like this. Let the right side face each other and join the two shoulders. Now guys, I'm done joining the two shoulders, as you can see, and I've stitched my darts both front and back, as you can see. So I'll go ahead now and use my bias tape to finish up the neckline, just like this. Let me place it like this for you to understand. Here is the back part and here is the front part. I'll just use my bias tape, start from here, pass through the back neckline till I reach here. I'm going to use my bias tape to finish it up. So when I finish doing that, I'll just fold. I'm going to place it on each other like this. Let the right side face each other. So here is the front, this is the back part. I'm placing the front on it like this. Let the right side face each other like this and stitch both sides. But on one side of the front, on one side of these upper parts, I'm going to leave a passage for my rope that I'm making to create my wrap. Just 2 inches at the middle, just like I'm going to measure ½ inch or 1 inch from the down part here, from the waistline upward, before I measure 2 inches for my passage. So when I finish doing that, I'll come and show you what's next, and I'm going to stitch both sides with 1 inch. Now I'm done with the neckline. As you can see, I finished it up with the bias tape. So I'll go ahead to my down part. Here's the back part of my down part. This is where I notched earlier to serve as my upper part for the down part. So I'll go ahead and place my front on it. Let the right side face each other just like this, and stitch both sides same. I added 1 inch for side seam, so I'm going to stitch both sides with 1 inch from here to here. Now I'm done stitching both sides, as you can see. So I'll just open it up like this for me to join the down part, the hem part to it, which is the pleated part. I'm done joining the pieces together to become one. So I will easily hem the bottom of it, one side of this piece. I'm going to hem it with 1 inch that I added for that. After hemming, I'll just place it on this down part. Let the right side face each other, and I'm going to pleat it little by little till I reach the second edge here. Now I'm done with the down part. As you can see, I've joined that pleated part. So what I'll do now is to join my upper part to the down part. Open it up like this. Find the middle of this down part. Here is the middle, which I've already notched, and I'm going to find the middle of this one too. I'll easily fold it like this and notch the center here. I'm going to notch the center like this, and I'm placing it on the down part just like this. If you are a beginner, please use pen to hold your fabric. So, and I'm going to start my stitching from here. After holding with pins, I'm going to stitch the waistline with ½ inch. Just let the right side of the upper part face the right side of the down part, and stitch with ½ inch on the waist. And these are the pieces I'm using for the ropes. I'm needing 2 pieces of it because I'm making 2 ropes. So let me use one out of it to explain how I'm going to go about it. I'll just fold it into 2 like this, stitch with 1/4 inch from this edge to the second edge. I'm doing the same thing on the second pieces. So you can make your own rope as long as you want it. Depends on how much fabric you have, and you can make it wide as possible as you want it. So the wideness of my own is 3 inches each. So let me quickly go and stitch it. I'll come and show you what's next. I'm done joining my dress on the waist, as you can see. So I'll go ahead to my belt now, which I've already stitched. My rope, my belt. Here is it. I've already turned this one inside out, so I'll go ahead and turn the second one to inside out. You can use anything to turn it inside out. Now I'm done turning the belts, both belts. I'm done turning them to the right side. You can give it a good press before attaching it to the dress, but I'm going to explain how to attach it first. So here is it now. This is the right side of my dress. I'll just take my rope, my belt like this, let it flat very well like this, and stitch with ½ inch. I left ½ inch here for the belt, so I'm going to stitch with ½ inch. So after stitching like that with ½ inch, I'm going to fold it like this in and top stitch. So I'm doing the same thing on the second side of the dress. So when I finish doing that, I'm going to move on to my sleeve. Here is the sleeve. Here is it now. Here is one of the sleeve. I'm going to cut elastic for the hem part of my sleeve to make it form the balloon that is on the hem part. So what I'll just do is to use my elastic to measure where I want my sleeve to reach, just like this, and cut it out. I'm cutting 2 pieces of the elastic. Don't let it too tight or nor too loose. So I'll just measure it out and cut. I'm cutting 2 pieces like I said. So after cutting it out, what I'll just do is to use pin to hold it down. Measure, I added 1 inch for hemming allowance. I'm going to measure it out. After measuring it out, I'm using pin to hold it here. So I'm going to drag it to the second side of this sleeve like this and use pin to hold it as well. Now make sure you measure that 1 inch before doing this. So what I'll just do now is to fold 1/4 inch and fold the remaining 0.75 just like this and top stitch. So I'm going to be dragging the elastic while stitching the hemming part. So I'm doing the same thing on the second sleeve. I'm done with the bottom of my sleeve, as you can see. So I'll go ahead and here is the second one. I'll go ahead and fold it like this. Let the right side face each other like this and stitch the side seam from the armpit here down to this place, so which I've already done on this. So when I finish doing that, I'll come and show you how to attach it to my dress. I'm done with my sleeves, as you can see, and I'm done with the belt too, as you can see. Here's my dress. Here's the right side of my dress. You can see the belt will just pass through the passage here, just like this, and the wrap is ready. I'm not even putting it on. See how beautiful it is, guys. So I'll go ahead now and attach my sleeve and just turn it to the wrong side. And here are my 2 sleeves. These will be for this side. I'll just fix it in. There's going to be a little puff here, so this one will be for this side. I'm going to fix it in and introduce little puff here. So when I finish doing that, I'm going to give it a good press and put it on for you guys to see.